3rd year of being married to Pei Zhiyan, he brought back a woman raised by wolves from the battlefield. To give that woman a proper status, he used a big lock to shut me into the abandoned courtyard. Why, Jen? I'll tell everyone you died of illness. Don't worry, I'll still take good care of you after I marry Chen Yu. I stroked my bulging belly and wanted to escape home, but my most trusted guard cut open my belly, and I bled to death. Turns out he also liked the wolf girl. I floated in the air and watched coldly as my brother, who rushed to the Marquise's mansion, upon hearing of my death, was captivated by the wolf girl. For her, they jointly covered up the cause of my death. After that, the young talents in the capital flocked to her, and noble family scions fully supported her, just to make her smile. It was only then that I realized we were all just characters in a storybook. The wolf girl was that universally adored female lead. Anyone who saw her would fall at her feet. Rebirth into a new life. I found the wolf girl in advance, and meticulously raised her, doting on her endlessly. Sister, she joyfully threw her. I want to be with you forever, sister. Is that so? If you want to be with me forever, you'll have to help me fulfill my wish. I sighed, holding her. She looked up at me, her eyes clear. Then who does sister want to make disappear next? The first thing I did after my rebirth was to gallop to Nanjun and find the wolf girl. The sturdy iron cage was solid and strong. A scrawny dark figure was desperately crashing inside. Her head and face were all blood from the impacts. At this time, the wolf girl had not yet been tamed or pampered. Her eyes were ferocious, her hair disheveled, and her entire body was crusted with dirt, making her appearance almost indistinguishable. There was no trace of her previous life's adorable and naive look. Dressed in a pink ruquan, with her head full of pearls and jade, standing before me and asking, "You are Brother Pei's wife, aren't you?" Noticing my gaze, she stopped crashing and looked over, gradually calming down. I smiled slightly, lifted my foot, and walked towards her. "Young lady, it is dangerous." Zhao Xian, who was guarding by the cage, hurriedly spoke up to warn me. What he said was for my safety, yet his body instinctively blocked the cage. How truly interesting. Even though the wolf girl was still like a wild person at the moment, she could already make people who approached her change. "How dare you?" Hong Zhu, behind me, coldly rebuked. "Zhao Xian, your and my mission is to protect young ladies' safety, not to interfere with young ladies' actions." Zhao Xian lowered his head and pursed his lips, but his body remained still. I can understand. In his previous life, he could even disembowel me for her to take my child. He was afraid that I would return to my maiden home with the child in my womb, causing an incident that would put the wolf girl in danger. He said, "Young lady, your status is noble, and your husband's family is prominent. You have everything. Miss Chen Yu has had such a difficult journey. Why can't you just let her have her way?" Zhao Xian and Hong Zhu were, respectively, a guard my father had assigned to me since childhood, and a secret guard my mother had given me. When I got married, no one else wanted them. I only brought these two. The affection from growing up together made me trust him like my own right and left hands. Yet in the end, I gave him a faint glance, then walked straight to the cage. The dirty person bared her teeth. Years of eating raw meat made her eyes bloodshot and full of savagery. I reached out my hand. She then quieted down. In her previous life, Pei Zhiyan brought her out from the mountains, and she was willing to step into the tumultuous Kyoto for him. Even knowing that he had a wife and was about to have children, she still followed him without hesitation. Oh, how profound their feelings and loyalty were. What a pity. I smiled and placed my hand on her dry hair. The red in her eyes faded, replaced by curiosity and confusion. "You are human, not beast. From today on, I will bring you back to the human world, to enjoy the beauty you rightfully deserve." "All right." I looked at her gently. I didn't know if she understood, but she just squinted and rubbed her head against my palm. However, just as I was about to pull my hand back and turn around, a sharp pain suddenly shot through my wrist. Crimson blood gushed out from where the wolf girl bit me. Immediately following were two sounds of swords being drawn. Hongzhu pointed her sword at Chen Yu, and Zhao Xian pointed his sword at Hongzhu, or rather, at me. I paid no mind to the commotion behind me, still gently speaking to the wolf girl. "Are you unwilling to come with me? If you are unwilling, I will let you go." Hearing this, she bit me even tighter. Her eyes filled with anxiety. Then she turned her head to look at Zhao Xian. Her eyes turned red again, filled with killing intent. I smiled contentedly. "I understand, rest assured. I'll be fine, and I won't abandon you." The caravan was suddenly attacked by a pack of wolves, and 4 guards, including Zhao Xian, all perished under the wolves' jaws. When Zhao Xian died, I was standing not far away, quietly watching the wolf girl, in an unobserved spot, bite off his neck, and his lips mumbled, his face full of terror. After he stopped breathing, the wolf girl then got up to tidy herself. But when she turned around and saw me, her eyes flashed with panic, and a sense of being wronged. Her hands tightly clutched the new dress I had changed for her. Her feet remained motionless until I raised my lips and beckoned to her, "Come here." Only then did she joyfully run towards me, rubbing her head against my arm to please me. After that, the journey was smooth, with no further complications. Even the animal trainers and cages I specially brought from the capital weren't needed. She clung to me all day as if she had no bones. Even Hongzhu couldn't help but ask, could it be that this wolf girl is like the mythical beasts in storybooks, who can form a bond with whoever's blood they drink, and obey their commands? Hearing this, I just smiled. Perhaps, who knows? The carriage on the way back was very slow. From Nanjun to the capital, we passed through 13 prefectures, each with its own unique local customs and flavors. I meant to let the wolf girl have a good look at this world. Of course, the most important thing was still to test her irresistible female lead attribute. My Xia family has shops in every prefecture, so I had Hongzhu take her to inspect the shops. Then I discovered that when the wolf girl appeared wearing a veil, others wouldn't notice her, but once she appeared barefaced, the gazes of the surrounding men would almost immediately fall upon her. Even though she was only 15 at this time, her skin was rough from constantly roaming the mountains and forests. Her body was gaunt, and she possessed no beauty. They would still obsess over her, as if they had lost their minds. This was the case for several shops we visited in a row. Animals are often more sensitive than humans, the wolf girl even more so. She detested those gazes. I didn't need to teach her. When she went out again later, she would already put on her veil herself, and over this past month and a half, after realizing her affection and dependence on me, I began her psychological taming. When her actions pleased me, I would not hesitate to hug her and personally cook her some pastries. On regular days, I would leave her to Hongzhu. Unless absolutely necessary, I would never give her a chance to get close to me. I don't know how Hongzhu taught her, but after a few days apart, when she saw me again, her eyes full of anticipation, she opened her arms for a hug, and could already stammer out my name. Sis. The journey back to the capital took more than 2 months. By then, it happened to be the rainy season in the capital. The wolf girl disliked rainy days, and lay listlessly on my lap. The carriage suddenly stopped. "Miss, it is the young lord of Yan State Duke's Manor, who is waiting for you at the city gate." The next instant, Pei Zhiyan's voice also came in. "Jen, your brother said you went back to Qizhou to pay respects to your uncle and aunt. How was the journey?" The first time meeting Pei Zhiyan after rebirth. Even though I was fully prepared, my hands still trembled uncontrollably. He was my childhood sweetheart, fiancé. Once upon a time, my parents were still alive. The young man often slept an entire night on the pear tree in my courtyard. Occasionally, he'd sleep so soundly that he'd fall from the tree, land in a dog-eat shit mess, and be chased away by my father wielding a stick. He would scratch his head and say, Jen doesn't like to go out. I just really wanted to come see her. Uncle, please don't be angry. That year, he won the martial arts top scholar title and paraded on horseback, the young man's red robes flowing as he brought back a garden full of fresh flowers from outside the city to the Sheer Manor. He said, "Ajen, a garden full of spring colors for you. May my Ajen be safe and sound year after year." The young man's fervent love made one's heart burn. Even after my father died in battle, and our family had no successor in court, even though he was the Duke's son, the Crown Prince's cousin, with boundless prospects, he firmly entered the palace and requested an imperial decree of marriage. "Ajen, I will maintain the Sheer family's glory and won't let the Sheer family fall." Later on, he brought back Chen Yu. When facing me, in his eyes, besides annoyance, there was only impatience. "Chen Yu is pure and kind. You women of the inner quarters are accustomed to scheming. If I let her be a concubine, I'm afraid she won't be able to endure your torment. Fine, if I divorce you, you wouldn't be able to live either. From now on, you'll just live well in this ruined courtyard. I won't mistreat you. And to the outside world, I'll say you died of a serious illness. Just one thing. After Chen Yu and I are married, don't harbor any improper thoughts. Otherwise, I will absolutely not forgive you." At that time, we had known each other for 10 years, been married for 3 years, and I was pregnant. With just one sentence, he was going to erase all traces of my existence in this world, imprisoning me in a small space like a lamb to the slaughter, and acting high and mighty, as if it were a gift. Noticing something was wrong with me, the wolf girl opened her dark eyes and looked at Pei Zhiyan outside, through the carriage curtain. Her eyes were like a deep secluded spring. I patted her head and commanded coldly, "Enter the city." Pei Zhiyan's smile froze at the corners of his mouth. He chased the carriage, calling out a few times, "Ajen! Why Jen?" Passers-by on the road turned their heads at his actions. He ignored them and insisted on following the carriage. He didn't know why I was treating him like this. To him, I had only been gone for a few months. But to me, I had lived through a past life, and this one, we are destined to fight to the death in this life. I settled the wolf girl on a manor my mother left for me. Hongzhu stayed behind to accompany her. The young miss has not yet bestowed a name upon her. Chen Yu, when Pei Zhiyan was making love with her in the study, he once said that the wolf girl's beauty was no less than Shishi's, and thus named her Chen Yu. Now I also need her beauty. Then let this name continue. Her living expenses should be provided, according to my own allowance, and have her learn to speak, and some bath. I don't have much time. The day Pei Zhiyan comes to propose from my previous life is less than half a year away. I glanced at the wolf girl, who was having a blast playing on the swing set. As I left, a few hoarse, stammering sounds came from behind me. Sister, don't leave me." Chen Yu anxiously chased after the carriage, having fallen countless times, her knees covered in dust. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked at me. Hongzhu caught up and pressed her face down to the ground. The carriage gradually drove further away, and her figure was reduced to just a small. I didn't go to see her for the next 2 months, only occasionally sending some storybooks I had carefully selected and instructing Hongzhu to read them to her, or sending some pastries I made myself. Hongzhu would send a letter every 2 days. The letter said that Chen Yu learned everything very quickly. Her speech and articulation were already and the words on the most recent letter were crooked and wobbly, like those of a child just starting school. There were only 6 words on it. "Jeje, miss you. Looking forward to your return." I became interested. I had originally thought that in my previous life, Pei Zhiyan must have painstakingly taught her. I never thought the wolf girl's learning ability was actually so astonishing. I had someone prepare a carriage to go outside the city. As soon as I got off the carriage, a fiery red blur crashed into my arms. An identical scent, just like the one on me, wafted towards my face. "Jeje!" I pushed her away, The female lead was indeed different from ordinary people. In just 2 months, she had undergone a complete transformation. Her thin body had become sturdy and filled out. Her withered yellow hair was now lustrous, and her face had also matured, revealing the stunning beauty from my previous life. However, her skin was not as pale as when I saw her in my previous life. It was a complexion that looked healthy at a glance. Chen Yu's speech was already very fluent, and her voice didn't sound as bright as I heard it in the last life. On the contrary, it was very deep. She hugged my arm and wouldn't let go, throwing out questions one after another. "Jie, why didn't you come to see me?" Hongzhu Jie said, "You're getting married. And getting married means you'll be with someone every day. Is it that person from the city gate that day?" Finally, she asked me. "Jie," Hongzhu said that ever since I left again, Chen Yu didn't like to sleep at night, always climbed onto the rooftop, and looked in the direction of Kyoto, not sure what she was thinking. I remembered that night when I stayed overnight at the estate, Chen Yu rested her head on my lap. I told Chen Yu, "It is our parents' command and the matchmaker's word. Some things aren't avoidable, just because I don't want them to be. Moreover, our marriage was bestowed by the emperor, but Pei Zhiyan is a hypocritical and heartless person. Absolutely not a good match." My words were unfinished when I lowered my head and shed tears. Although she didn't quite understand what I meant by my words, she just saw me cry and crawled over to hug me. "Don't cry. If you don't want to, then don't marry him." I shook my head. "My marriage is not mine to decide." Her eyes sparkled, as if, "Then I'll just make him disappear. I just want older sister to be happy, and be with older sister forever." She laughed joyfully, listing what she would do with me in the future. I quietly watched her. Such a sincere and passionate person is indeed very likable. Too bad. Hongzhu's letter said that Chen Yu was working even harder than before, and gradually became silent. "Keep a close eye on her," I slowly replied with 3 words. After some time, when I went to see her, Chen Yu was no longer as lively as when she first emerged from the mountains, and her brows and eyes were tinged with melancholy. Occasionally she would hold a storybook and ask me, "Why can the women in this storybook only be rootless duckweeds, and not long-standing green cypresses like men? Does this world devour women?" I know, she has completely become a person. As long as one is human, they will have desires. For that desire, she will go to any lengths. It all depends on what she wants. So I told her, "That is right. If they marry the wrong person, like Pei Zhiyan, then that woman is as good as dead." I wasn't lying. In my previous life, after marrying Pei Zhiyan, I truly met a terrible end. So, I had no qualms about saying that. Chen Yu's eyes gradually turned red. "Then I will kill him for you, big sister." I patted her head, pretending to stop her. "But this is Kyoto. I don't want you to be in danger for me." She held my hand. "Big sister, you gave me flesh and blood. I wish to be your blade, and also want to be your shield. In this life, my life is yours." Besides Chen Yu, Pei Zhiyan also thought of me. Since we parted at the city gate that day, he came daily, either sending letters or sending things. Pastries from Baofangzhai, fish from all things I used to like. He wanted to beg me to see him, so he could know what he had done wrong. I had the doorman stop him and refuse to see him, returning everything he sent. The noble marquise's heir stood stunned outside the gate, like a discarded stray dog. I watched through the crack in the door, as the anxiety on his face turned to bewilderment, and then to sadness. "Jen, though I don't know why you're angry, it is all right. I will wait for you. We will get married." He forced a smile and murmured, then turned and left. Not long after that, the things continuously sent daily by the marquise's residence stopped. Rumors started circulating in the streets. The heir of Marquis Zhongyong's residence accompanied the marquise to a temple outside the city to offer incense, where he chanced upon a farm girl, fell in love with her at first sight, and wanted to annul his engagement with Xie Huaizhen to marry the farm girl. The rumors grew more and more intense, eventually evolving into the claim that it was because the Xie family's daughter lacked personal virtue, and Pei Zhiyan would rather have the farm girl than the Xie family's daughter. Meanwhile, the Duke's residence and Pei Zhiyan remained silent, neither clarifying nor stopping the rumors. Indeed, when the engagement was made in the past, my father was still alive, and this marriage was considered a good match. Now that the Xie family's standing has declined, they naturally look down on us, hoping to ruin my reputation and seek another noble daughter. As for Chen Yu, she is merely a man's dalliance, and in their eyes, she is simply nothing to be afraid of. Red Candle, standing in front of me, handed me a letter. Miss, Chen Yu has already entered the Duke's residence. I put down the wolf hairbrush in my hand and turned my head to look out the window. The sky had turned half dark at some point, with winds rising and clouds surging, a sign that a heavy rain was coming. I said, I know, what does that Pei Zhiyan mean? He was the one who asked the emperor for a marriage bestowal, and now he's the one who wants to marry a farm girl. Whose face is he slapping? He paced back and forth in the study in a rage, unable to do anything but curse. After my parents died in battle, my elder brother Shi Jin, relying on the support of father's subordinates in the army, won a few battles and later served as a fourth-rank General Weibo. After returning to the capital, he only took on an idle post and never accomplished anything new. He needed this marriage connection with the Pei family, yet couldn't accept others, saying he relied on his in-laws to uphold the general's manners reputation. I also once had expectations for this elder brother of mine. When I was little, I was very delicate, but mother said we were a family of martial generals. Even if we don't go to battle to kill enemies, girls should still know some martial arts for self-defense. So every time I practiced martial arts, I cried while doing it. Mother was strict, holding a disciplinary ruler and pointing out my flaws. My elder brother would then intentionally make mistakes to grab mother's attention. So when Pei Zhiyan was going to lock me up to die for Chen Yu, the first thing I thought of was to go home for help. But upon learning of my death, when he came to the Marquise's manor and saw Chen Yu, he only said one thing: dead. Good, she is dead. It is her good fortune to be a stepping stone for Miss Chen Yu. My elder brother was still cursing. He suddenly looked at me with disgust. It must be that day you returned to the city. You played hard to get and annoyed him. You useless thing. You can't even win over a man. I lowered my eyelids and said obediently, if this engagement is brother, there is no need to get so worked up. He sneered. Don't think I don't know what you're plotting. Don't forget, you're just a woman of the inner chambers. I am your heaven. Then I'll marry you off to a peddler or a street thug. It'll depend on my... Only then did I raise my head. My elder brother's eyes held blatant malice. I also smiled. It is all up to you, elder brother. Xi Jin was right. I am a woman of the inner chambers. My father, elder brother, and husband are all my heaven. But what if a husband is not a husband, and an elder brother is not an elder brother? 2 days later, Duke Chenggen's estate sent an invitation. It was Grand Madam of Duke Chenggen's estate's big birthday. The old Duke once served as the Emperor's grand tutor. Although he has now retired, his status remains highly respected. Pei Zhiyan will also be there today. I don't care what method you use, you absolutely must win back this engagement for me. I ignored my elder brother's raving, staring blankly at the 2 sets of clothes the maid brought, one light blue, one red. I was thinking, if Chen Yu wore that red dress, she would look very beautiful. In my previous life, every time we met, she seemed to wear such bold colors. It made her captivating, so I pointed to the blue dress. I'll wear this one today. Duke Chenggen's estate was indeed very lively. After my elder brother and I greeted the Grand Madam and the old Duke, I began searching for someone. Isn't that Xie Huaizhen? She is about to have her engagement broken off, and she still has the nerve to come to a birthday banquet. Back then, I even envied how well young Duke Pei treated her. But in the end, she was outshone by a farmer's daughter. Directly became a discarded woman. Haha, several mocking laughs drifted over. They were a few noblewomen who were not on good terms with me. I was about to avoid them a bit when I heard another bold female voice ring out. A few gossiping busybodies have the nerve to run around everywhere. But she, Xie Huaijian, is the daughter of the deceased general who guards the nation. A descendant of heroes. Why can't she come? The few women instantly fell silent. Women from influential aristocratic families, all prided themselves on being virtuous, proper, calm, and graceful. Clearly, they had never seen such an in-your-face, spirited woman. I curled my lips into a smile, walked out from behind a nearby tree, and softly called, "Sister Wei." The woman turned around, her eyes going from sharp to moist. After a lifetime, we met again, and with just one glance I knew, she was back too. The person I was looking for, the daughter of the Imperial Guard's Left Commander, Wei Lin. In her previous life, she married my elder brother, and was the sister. Xie Jin disliked her martial ways, yet he coveted the benefits her maternal family brought him. Later, after my brother met Shen Yu, she was detested by him. Like me, her husband didn't love her, and the servants, seeing their master's attitude, also disrespected and mistreated her. She could only barely get by in the back courtyard. I floated above and saw how she desperately tried to go to the Marquise's estate to seek justice for me. Such a proud woman, yet she died tragically in a filthy alley, having no means to appeal for justice on my behalf. Her corpse was violated by beggars Fei, and in the end, she only got a line from my brother. "Fei, how can she be worthy of entering my Xia family's ancestral hall?" Oh, her corpse was hastily wrapped in a straw mat and thrown into the mountains. At this time in her previous life, she should have already been betrothed to Xie Jin. Now, with no action for so long, I knew something was wrong. As I looked at her, my eyes felt a bit warm, and Wei Qin had already come over and pulled me into her embrace. She was about to say something, when she had come with Pei Zhiyan. Today she was clearly wearing a delicate lotus root-colored ruquan, but at this moment, her expression was somewhat sullen. Her gaze fell on Wei Qin's, and my clasped hands. Wei Qin, who was holding my hand, turned and sneered at Pei Zhiyan, who was coming over from a distance. "Young master, what is the meaning of this? To openly bring such a foxy seductress to the Grand Madame's birthday banquet? And before Huaizhen has even entered the family, this foxy seductress already calls her sister. Aren't you afraid of being ridiculed?" Pei Zhiyan walked closer, glanced at me, then moved his gaze away. He looked a bit thinner, and his eyes were dark with exhaustion. Hearing Wei Qin's words, he took Chen Yu's hand and sneered. "What is there to ridicule about bringing someone you cherish to show their face before the world?" There were many young masters and ladies around, and hearing his words, all their gazes fell upon me, scrutinizing, mocking. However, today I had found the answer I sought, so I would not pay attention to his vulgar provocations. I simply curtsied. "As long as young Xie Huaijian, you remember, you were the one who abandoned me first after today. Don't come back begging me. This young master will see. If I don't marry you, who else would dare to want you? You just wait to grow old and die at home." I didn't stop walking, and a pair of eyes kept looking at Shen Yu. "After a lifetime, you still haven't seen clearly, and still like him." Wei Lin's exasperated voice rang out in my ears. I quickly withdrew my gaze, and waved my hand, playful for once. "Sister, you've misunderstood. How could I? It would be merciful of me not to skin him and pull out his tendons." Wei Lin sighed. "The difficult part is, although Duke Yan wants to annul your engagement with Pei Zhiyan doesn't seem to have any intention of letting go. Now his family holds high power and authority. He holds military power, and he himself is a martial arts champion by origin. I can't even kill him for you." I found it amusing and joked. "Then why don't the two of us work together? Perhaps there is a glimmer of hope, she frowned. What should you do? You've finally gotten a chance to start over. You can't step into the same fire pit again. I won't. As for you, although you haven't been formally engaged to my brother, the marriage contract hasn't been rescinded. So you must have trouble too. Her eyes filled with sadness. Yes, my stepmother. You know her. After my mother passed away, my father remarried, and now they have sons and daughters, and I've become an outsider. My marriage is in my stepmother's hands. If it doesn't go their way, my mother's memorial tablet will likely be moved out of the Wei family ancestral hall, and her name on the family tree will also be crossed out. But on what grounds? If my mother hadn't married into the Wei family back then, who knows what state of disrepair their family would have fallen into. As soon as my maternal grandfather's family declined, they immediately used soft knives to pressure my mother to her death, and now they even want to strip away the last vestige of her existence. Her eyes were bloodshot, her tone full of resentment. Even a strong-willed woman like her was still constrained by worldly customs and etiquette. It is clear that, as Chen Yu had said, this world indeed devours women. Her father and my elder brother are both like roundworms sucking blood from women. Then how about we kill my elder brother? At these words, Wei Lin spat out a mouthful of hot tea, then looked at me in disbelief. What did you say? Evidently, even after living a second life, she had never had such a rebellious thought. I smiled at her, as if I wasn't suggesting patricide, but discussing the weather, and repeated myself. I said, let's kill Shi Jin. Let's kill our way out. For you, for me, for us to carve out a path to survival. Your family has no male heir. If your elder brother dies, you'll likely be devoured by the clan elders, and you might not be any better off than in your previous life. She hadn't finished speaking, her eyes full of the bewilderment of being unable to break free from her cage. I knew what she was going to say. Me, an unmarried woman. If there were no men left in my family, then not to mention the family property, would be completely divided among the clan. Even my marriage and my life, I'm afraid, would be at the mercy of others. Then let him use this life to shine one last time, to fight for a future for. The capital had incidents of wild beasts attacking people. The Jing Zhaoyan posted a notice, informing the entire city that people should lock their doors and windows at night. Several noble ladies were attacked. The beast, no one knew how, broke through heavy guards and snuck into their inner chambers. Fortunately, their clothes were only torn by the beast's claws, and they were startled, but the people themselves were not injured. Those noble ladies were precisely the ones who had mocked me at the old madam's birthday banquet that day. Only Wei Lin, after being injured on her arm, pierced the beast's hind paw with a sword, and only then did the beast leave. If Wei Lin hadn't known martial arts, she might have lost her life to the beast. In this life and the last, her ways of harming Wei Lin were different, but she always wanted to hurt her. I clutched the secret letter in my hand with a cold expression, then instructed Hongju, "Find a way to kill them." Yes. As Hongju responded, and was about to withdraw, I frowned and called her back. Forget it, it is not the time yet. A few days ago, the Duke's mansion's carriage passed along the long street. The wind lifted the curtain, and inside sat Pei Zhiyan and Chen Yu, along with a few scantily clad courtesans. These past 2 days, everyone in the streets and alleys has been spreading rumors about Pei Zhiyan soliciting prostitutes publicly, which is why I wanted to break off the engagement with him. It is not my fault. My reputation, which had previously sunk to rock bottom, is gradually clearing up. Chen Yu has done so much for me, killing her companion at this time is truly wrong. I added, let's save it for another day. On the day summer started, an imperial decree arrived at our manor. Northwest Linzhou was plagued by bandits, and my brother was ordered to go suppress them. This also happened in my previous life. The one who recommended to the emperor that my brother lead troops there was Duke Yan. At that time, Pei Zhiyan and I were already engaged. After prominent families intermarried, both families would need to be united and supportive to last long. Therefore, His father often promoted my brother in the officialdom. Later, my brother achieved a great victory in suppressing the bandits, and upon his return, he was given a substantive position as the deputy commander of the Imperial City Guard, Huangchengxi. In this reborn life, the person who made the recommendation was Wei Lian's father. I just don't know. On the day my brother departed, Wei Lian also rode her horse over. Just like in my previous life, she said she was worried about my brother being alone and wanted to go with him to take care of him. She and my brother were already engaged, so no one would say anything about them going together. But my brother's face was extremely long. Looking at Wei Lian, I remembered the painting of the beautiful lady in his study, where the ink was not yet dry, and Chen Yu's face glowed brightly in it. I found it amusing. That smile happened to be seen by him, and as soon as he opened his mouth, it was a scolding. What are you laughing at? Put away your little schemes, and stay honestly at home. Don't run around. When I return, your engagement with young Master Pei should also be put on the agenda. I just smiled without speaking, and escorted them all the way to the city gate. Before Wei Lin left, he waved his hand with his back to me. Not far away stood Pei Zhiyan, whom I hadn't seen for a long time, looking at me with complex eyes. He looked a bit different again, compared to when I last saw him. Seeing me look at him, he painfully rubbed his forehead, as if he was resisting something. As he passed by, he said, "Don't worry. Do you really have to be so distant?" He was a bit exasperated, and reached out to grab me again. Jen, I don't understand. I don't understand why you completely changed towards me after one trip out. Where did I go wrong? Will you tell me? I took 2 steps back to avoid his hand, and smiled gently at him. How could young master be wrong? The one who was wrong was Xie Huaijian, who was blinded by love in the previous life, and couldn't save herself. His hand stiffened mid-air, his lips moved, and finally he said, "Jen, our engagement will continue. You know, I want you, so you can only be with me. Neither you nor your brother have the right to refuse." He seemed to have struggled for a long time. Then he continued, "As for Chen Yu, her background is pitiful, and she has no one to depend on. Rest assured, after you enter our home, I'll make her a concubine to serve both you and me." Chen Yu, a concubine. In the previous life, just to make her his wife, he helplessly watched Zhao Xian dig out our child. Where was his love that was like dying and coming back to life? I just felt as if I had run into a ghost, throwing all the etiquette I had learned to the back of my mind. I lifted my skirt and ran. It rained again during the night. Water drops fell intermittently from the eaves, hitting the edge of the porch. It was especially conducive to sleep. I had a dream. In the dream, the surroundings were desolate. Windows and doors were covered in dust. Even the bed I was lying on was damp. It was raining out. The air even seemed to carry a hint of moldiness. Pei Zhiyan stood before me, looking down, covering his mouth and nose, the disgust in his eyes almost overflowing. "Jie Huaijian, this is all your own doing. Just wanted to marry Chen Yu as my wife, but you insisted on opposing me." I remembered. This was the scene after I ran out of the abandoned courtyard, and was just caught and brought back. Pei Zhiyan broke my legs and wouldn't let a doctor see me, nor would he allow anyone to attend to me. I couldn't get out of bed. My skirt was stained with yellow filth, and in despair, I desperately turned my head away, not wanting him to see. But it was useless. My dignity was thrown on the ground, and crushed little by little. And he was still talking. "Jie Huaijian, Chen Yu was kind enough to spare your life. You are so ungrateful, yet you still want to run out and tarnish her reputation. You might as well fend for yourself here." The scene changed, and I saw Hongzhu again, anxiously crouching in front of me. Miss, how you are the daughter of the general who guards the nation. How dare they treat you like this?" I groggily opened my eyes, and saw Hongzhu picking me up, her hands trembling uncontrollably. "I'll take you back to the general's estate first. Where is Xian? Is he dead for letting you get so hurt? Miss, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I'll take you. Before she could finish speaking, a wolf with grey fur suddenly pounced out and bit Hongzhu on the shoulder. Hongzhu cried out in pain, and had no choice but to put me down first and fight with the wolf. However, as the number of wolves increased, Hongzhu's injuries also increased. When she clutched her profusely bleeding neck and collapsed in front of me, all I felt was hatred. Hatred surged to the heavens, a bolt of lightning struck, and I suddenly sat up from the bed, my nightclothes almost soaked through. I gasped a few times before breaking free from the nightmare of my previous life. It was early summer, and the weather grew muggier day by day. I was about to call someone in to help me change clothes when I turned and saw a dark figure standing by the head of the bed. My gaze sharpened, and just as I was about to pull out the dagger from under my pillow, the figure slowly knelt by the bed and wrapped their arms around my waist. Sister, Fei's voice was hoarse, but her arms held on very tightly. My body was stiff. After a long while, I finally placed my hand on. She still lightly nuzzled my palm and asked, "Elder sister just now kept calling my name. Did you dream of me? Did you miss me?" Forcibly suppressing the murderous intent in my heart, my voice was also a bit hoarse. I dreamed of the scene when I first met you." Fei raised her face, her hand rubbing my wrist, where there was a faint tooth mark scar. "I bit elder sister the first time we met. Elder sister must have been very hurt then, right?" "It didn't hurt, not as painful as being disemboweled and having a child cut out." Ca took off her outer robe, climbed onto the bed, and nestled close to me, her voice muffled. "From now on, I won't ever make elder sister hurt again." Since that farewell to my elder brother outside the city, Pei Zhiyan had changed again. At night, he would always come and stand outside the general's manor, staring blankly at the pear tree that extended from the inside out. That was the tree he used to climb when he often came to find me. Those years when we knew each other in our youth, he had slept countless nights in that tree. But as soon as Fei arrived, his confused gaze at the tree would turn into an angry flick of his sleeve as he left. Fei's gaze met mine through the crack in the door. I gave her a gentle smile. In my previous life, she had also taken Pei Zhiyan away from me like this, time and time again. In this life, I am grateful to her. Pei Zhiyan hasn't attended court for many days, and several tasks the crown prince assigned him still haven't made any progress, making him very displeased with Pei Zhiyan. Consequently, Duke Yan, frustrated that he wasn't living up to expectations, also punished him with several floggings. That evening, 2 letters were delivered to my desk. "Older sister. His skin is ripped open, and he can't even get out of bed. Are you pleased? Jen. I will come to propose as soon as possible. We will be together." Chen Yu's handwriting had improved a lot. It was clear, graceful, and beautiful. It was practiced by imitating my former calligraphy copybook. Pei Zhiyan's handwriting, however, was wild and messy, as if written in a hurry. During this time, I often traveled back and forth between the general's residence and Huguo Temple outside the city to pray for my brother and the soldiers. To show my sincerity, I also withdrew most of the money from the Xie family's shop to build the Xie clan charity hospital, specifically to house the elderly and abandoned infants. After the charity hospital was completed, I spent most of my time there. The next time I heard news of Pei Zhiyan was when something happened at Duke Yan's estate. I heard that they lost a family heirloom from their residence, and Pei Zhiyan was attacked by a wild beast when he chased the thief outside the city. Not only did he fail to retrieve the item, but one of his arms was torn apart by that beast. Blood stained half of his clothes, and he was in a deep coma when he was carried back. The Duchess, who was my mother-in-law in my previous life, let out screams and cries that could still reach my ears, even from several houses away. I knelt on the prayer mat, my eyes fixed straight on the bodhisattva covered in gold leaf. Then I bowed deeply. Thank you, Bodhisattva, for your protection. As I stood up, a young servant stumbled in, his gaze settling on the Bodhisattva for a moment, before he urgently said, Miss, the general is back. When I stumbled into the general's manor, after returning from Huguo Temple outside the city, the imperial physicians were already holding a consultation in the inner courtyard, accompanied by the head eunuch, who served His Majesty. My elder brother was covered in blood, lying on the couch like a dead person. The deputy general who accompanied my brother stepped forward, crying as he recounted the situation to me. That band of bandits was well trained and well equipped with weapons. The information sent back by the local prefecture was wrong. Although the bandits have now been driven out of Linzhou, the general is gravely injured, and Miss Wei is dead. My body swayed, and tears streamed from my eyes. The head of the Imperial Medical Academy shook his head after examining him. General Xie has injuries to all his internal organs. The wound in his lower abdomen is a penetrating injury, and his left leg was also severed by a hunter's trap. Although the military doctors treated it on the way back, the infection is still too severe. I'm afraid it is. No. It can't be. Sir Head Imperial Physician, please save my elder brother. My family has been loyal to the country. Only my brother and I are left. I knelt on the ground, collapsing in grief and weeping, kowtowing to the head Imperial Physician, and soon my forehead was red and swollen. The Grand Eunuch by His Majesty's side pitifully helped me up. Miss Xi, please do pay attention to your own body. His Majesty is concerned about the general's mansion. Overcome with grief, I swayed and staggered up with that force. The moment I stood straight, my body swayed, and I fainted. Before my consciousness faded, several exclamations rang in my ears. When I opened my eyes again, it was already dark outside. Inside, the candlelight was dim and yellow, with only one lamp lit by the bedside. I slowly got out of bed, picked up the lamp, and walked out. When I arrived at my brother's courtyard, the maid was startled to see me, and hurriedly bowed. Miss. Indeed, at this moment, my long hair was unbound, and I was only wearing a white inner garment. Seeing me at night would probably be quite frightening. I shed tears. I'll take care of my brother. You all may leave first. The maid dared not delay, and immediately signaled for the others in the courtyard to leave. I wiped away my tears, and slowly and deliberately pushed open the door. My brother wasn't awake yet. Oh, he wasn't dead either. With injuries this severe, whether he could be saved or not, it actually felt pointless. The imperial physician gave him medicine, and force-fed him some ginseng soup. He gave a few instructions, only saying, whether General Xie can wake up depends on tonight, then returned to the palace to report to His Majesty, placing the lamp by the bedside. I adjusted my clothes and sat down, slowly saying, Brother, tell me, how did we end up like this? You used to take me to see lantern shows, teach me calligraphy. When the tutor at our mansion taught me women's ethics and precepts in my childhood, you picked up the tutor and threw him out, causing such a ruckus that Mom and Dad couldn't find a tutor for a long time, and we could only go to Pei Zhiyan's homeschool with him. I sighed wistfully. To keep Mum from scolding me, you'd pull me up before dawn every day to teach me martial arts. Later, I made fewer and fewer mistakes, and my martial arts got better and better. But you, elder brother, became the one who got punished more. You also became more and more silent, and it seemed that from then on, you started to distance yourself from me. Do you still remember that plate of pastries? A plate of butterfly pastries you brought for me to eat. After eating them, I had a fever for 3 days, and when I woke up again, all my martial arts were gone. Even my physical I could no longer practice martial arts. You later found out, saying it was because of my willfulness that I punished the servant with money, and that servant had no money to get medical treatment for his mother, leading to her death. He poisoned me to avenge his mother. But I clearly didn't. I tore off my dignified facade, my tone full of indignation. After a long while, I calmed down again, and said lightly, "Never mind. I don't care about any of this. After all, before Mother passed away, she was still admonishing me to support each other with you, and forget about this." I felt like laughing a bit. She told me to forget, and I, being obedient, forgot that when I was young, I also wanted to fight alongside my parents on the battlefield, forgot that I once learned excellent martial arts, and forced myself to become the most proper and respectable young lady of a noble family in the capital. But, big brother, where exactly did I offend you to make you hate me so much? You are just a woman, born to sacrifice and contribute for the men in your family. Big brother had woken up at some point, staring at me with hateful eyes. Even though he was about to die, still condescendingly reprimanded me. "It is you who is unruly. You tried to surpass men as a woman. You deserve to die." I remember now. I remember everything. It is you harmed me. It is Wei Lin who harmed me. You too, Fei. You were clearly in league with those mountain bandits. He excitedly spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood, and opened his mouth to shout, "Guards! Drag Xie Huaijian out and beat her to death, then report Wei Lin for colluding with mountain bandits. I want them to die. I want them to die." Seeing him like this, I instantly understood, and a strange smile played on my lips. "You also rebirthed. When was it? When you were heavily injured, or just now?" He didn't answer me, struggling desperately to get up and call for someone, and in no time, the bandages that were originally wrapped were stained red with blood again. My hand gently moved to his wound, then I pressed down hard, and my fingertips were instantly soaked with gushing blood. Big brother's forehead veins bulged. His screams were just ho-ho sounds, and when he looked at me again, his eyes were filled with deep terror. "Forget it. I'm not curious anymore. Now that you've undergone rebirth, you should know some things now. In your previous life, you despised me, but because of my marriage to Pei Zhiyan, you were promoted. You looked down on Wei Qin, but because of her strategies, you wiped out the mountain bandits, and were heavily relied upon when you returned to the capital. Just because we are women, you want to suck us dry to the bone. You really deserve to die. This world is like this. You think I'm dead. Can an unmarried woman like you guard the general's mansion? Pei Zhiyan doesn't love you. He will break off the engagement and marry Chen Yu. Wei Qin, before she even marries, will carry the reputation of jinxing husbands. The world's spittle can drown you. You will go to hell with me." Blood gushed from his mouth. He couldn't even speak, only glaring with eyes full of hatred, wishing he could flay me and draw out my sinews. I calmly withdrew my hand, and I should thank my brother for bravely killing bandits and bringing me wealth and status. As for Wei Qin, she is Fei dead Fei. There will be no more Wei Qin in this world. The emperor will commend her for dying for the people. The Wei family will open their ancestral hall, and her achievements will forever be recorded in the family genealogy. Before leaving, I sniffed the blood on my hand. Sure enough, even a villain's blood smells particularly rank. The moment I stepped out of the room, I saw Hongju. She didn't know that I had lived another life. She only knew that after my trip to Nan Commandery, my actions were completely different from before. Just now, she should have also heard the conversation my brother and I had inside. Just as I opened my mouth, the usually cold woman's eyes were a little red. "Your subordinate does not know what young miss has gone through, but young miss, please boldly do whatever you want to do. Hongzhu will follow you to the death." "Silly Hongzhu, you have already sworn to follow me to the death once," I chuckled. Returning to my courtyard, Hongzhu instantly sensed something was wrong, fiercely rushed into the house, and with a move, dragged someone out from the darkness. The two thus began to fight. I held the lantern and waited in the courtyard. It wasn't until an uncertain Chen Yu was called out that I went inside. Chen Yu was injured, her small face ghastly pale, and although she was wearing clean clothes, her body carried a strong smell of blood. Seeing me, she immediately tried to pounce and hug me. "Gee!" Hongzhu drew her blade and blocked her. I also took 2 steps back. JJ, she took 2 more steps forward. Her slender neck was cut with shallow blood marks by Hongzu's blade. She only looked at me with a wronged expression. JJ, I crippled Pei Zhiyan. You don't have to marry him anymore, but you didn't kill him. I spoke coldly, never having seen my cold face. Chen Yu was somewhat stunned, and said urgently, I will kill him. JJ, don't be angry. This time he was lucky someone came to save him. Next time I will definitely kill him. I just heard your brother was seriously injured, and was afraid you'd be sad, sister. You've been crying. She looked at me seriously, but no longer dared to step forward. I smiled. So that is how it is. It is fine. Life and death are fated. I'm not sad, as long as, seeing me smile, her eyes lit up. I will kill him as soon as possible. All right. We've seen each other today. I'm tired. You should go now. Enyu's smile froze at the corners of her mouth, but she still said, okay then, sister. You rest for I will definitely fulfill your wish as soon as possible. After she left, Hongzhu looked at the crimson blood on the knife. After all, she had watched Chen Yu grow up with her own eyes, and ultimately couldn't bear it. Miss, now that her assassination attempt on Pei Zhiyan has been discovered, and she is injured, with no one she knows in the capital, don't think too much. We still have a show to put on tomorrow. We need to conserve our energy. You go down and rest first. A gentle smile still curved on my lips. My brother didn't make it through that night. On the day of the funeral, the emperor personally came, and prattled on for a long time in front of father's memorial tablet. He spoke of their acquaintance in their youth, how he was an unfavored prince, and father was the legitimate son of the general's manor. Even though there were countless princes more powerful than him, father steadfastly chose him, protecting him all the way to that supreme position. The emperor shed tears in sadness, and everyone said he valued loyalty and righteousness. I covered the mockingly upturned corner of my mouth with a handkerchief. It was nothing more than crocodile tears after the birds were gone, and the bows stored away. Otherwise, why would the originally thriving protector of the nation general's residence end up with its descendants withered and military power falling into other hands? After his sorrow, when he left, he issued an imperial decree. He enfoffed me as Princess Amping, granted me residence in the general's residence, and decreed that the plaque of the protector of the nation general's residence must not be taken back. In the future, when I marry, the palace will prepare a dowry for me with the rights of a princess, and send me off to marry. So as soon as the emperor left, the guests who came to offer condolences began to whisper, she has been enfoffed as a princess, yet has no feudal territory. What kind of sense does that make? Anyone with eyes can see that the last male heir of this branch of the Xia family is also gone. My Xia family. This venerable family, that has stood for centuries, from today onwards, has completely fallen. As for whether the Xia family has fallen or not, who knows? After the emperor left, I cried myself unconscious again. I really didn't want to keep vigil for such a heartless person. Plus, there were many things to do at the Shuan hospice, and I hadn't had a good night's sleep for many days. I woke up again when the maid called me. It was already dark outside, and the streets echoed with the night watchman's clapper marking the curfew. During this time, under the pretext of praying for the soldiers, I reduced the Fune expenses, and dismissed many servants. Those who remain now have had 3 generations of their family thoroughly investigated. The maid brought me clothes. Miss, young master has arrived. He is outside the residence. I opened my hands to change. What is he here for? Looks like he is here to beg for forgiveness. He has been kneeling for 2 hours already. The maid said so, even though I knew the general situation. The moment the main gate opened, I was still shocked. Pei Zhiyan's face was as pale as a ghost. One sleeve dangled empty, swaying in the wind, yet he knelt there motionless, body straight. The moment I met those unfathomably deep, yet pain-filled eyes, I clenched my hands in my sleeves. What kind of eyes were those? Having been husband and wife for several years in my previous life, I naturally recognized the steady and lethal aura that had settled after years of immersion on the battlefield. It was absolutely not something the current Pei Zhiyan should possess. And if I could recognize him, so could he. Jen! Seeing me come out, Pei Zhiyan's eyes lit up, and he knelt forward a few steps, the wound on his arm immediately oozing blood from the movement. "Brother Yan!" I cried out in surprise, and immediately rushed over, burying my face in his arms and sobbing. "Brother Yan! My brother is dead!" I cried terribly, tears instantly soaking his chest. Pei Zhiyan's words, which he originally wanted to say, were also choked back. His eyes were complex, and after a moment's hesitation, he reached out and embraced me. His voice hoarse. "It is okay. It is okay. You still have me." We embraced for a long time in silent understanding, not saying a word, then waved goodbye. I watched Pei Zhiyan's tall figure gradually hunch over, and he even stumbled a bit after walking. Not far away, immediately following, were several agile figures, like dogs and wolves, chasing after him. Hongzhu supported me. "Princess, let's go back. She will hand. It is not over until I see the result with my own eyes. Follow them." Kyoto was under curfew. The empty streets were silent, except for the occasional sounds of family joy escaping from the lit households nearby. The lanterns by the road couldn't illuminate the dark alleys, just like the nights in the abandoned courtyard were always terrifyingly pitch black, with only me alone lingering on in a corner. But now everything was different. I held a lantern, and the evening wind made my white morning clothes flutter. Not far away lay two figures that seemed soaked in blood. They didn't stir until they heard my footsteps. "Sister, Jen." Two pairs of equally longing gazes stared at me. I paused, then lifted my feet and walked towards Pei Zhiyan. "Sister," Chen Yu called out again, her severe injuries making her unable to move, so she could only gaze at me with her tear-filled eyes. A glimmer of surprise flashed in Pei Zhiyan's eyes. Seeing me squat down, his pale lips moved. "I'm sorry. Jen, I'm sorry. I hurt you so much in my previous life. I didn't mean to. I don't know why. Whenever I saw Chen Yu, I just couldn't help myself." He whimpered in pain, as if possessed, blood vessels gradually appearing in his eyes, his eyeballs bulging out, persistently repeating over and over again, "How could I do that to you? Why would I do that to you?" His words were cut short by the dagger I plunged into his chest. "Brother Yan, you need to rest." My voice was very soft, but as blood drained, he truly quieted down, lay back, and closed his eyes, muttering, "Yes, I need to rest. Jen is still waiting for me to propose. I need to rest properly." He peacefully closed his eyes. I hummed a familiar lullaby. My love rode his bamboo horse, playing with green plums around the bed. Living together in Chang'an, two youngsters, no suspicions between them. I became your wife. My shy face not yet unveiled. On the flower festival that year, when I was 8, I rode out alone on horseback to find my parents, because I missed them too much. But after leaving the city, I couldn't find my way home. That was the first time I saw you, a defiant and unrestrained youth. Yet you panicked when faced with me, shedding golden beans all over my face, and sang me lullabies all night long. You asked me which family's little sister I was, to send me home, saying you'd never seen a girl like me, and if you could marry me, you would surely make me the freest girl in the world. Later, when Zhaoshang cut out the baby from my belly, Pei Zhiyan stood not far away, watching coldly, ignoring my pleas and cries. Before I died, his helpless sigh was in my ear. "Why Zhen, I am your heaven. Just die in peace. I no longer love you. Living is only painful for you. Why don't you just die?" Pei Zhiyan said he was my heaven, and if he told me to die, my elder brother also said he was my heaven, telling me to marry whoever he wished. Layer upon layer of heaven pressed down on me, making me unable to see hope. So suffocating. Just as suffocating as you being controlled by settings and letting me down. But it is okay, I can't bear to let you endure this kind of pain like mine, so I'm here to— The dagger, pressed down by me, fiercely stabbed through Pei Zhiyan's heart. Blood gushed out in great mouthfuls from the corner of his mouth. He reached out, wanting to touch my face, but eventually pulled it back. I'm sorry. After spitting out these 3 words, Pei Zhiyan exhaled his last breath in Brother Yan's sleep. I closed his wide-open eyes, and finally, tears, shed for the affection of our childhood friendship, streamed down my cheeks. I pulled out the dagger, and stood up, walking towards Chenyu. Her eyes were wet, and the smile at the corner of her mouth almost couldn't hold, as she choked and asked me, Sister, he is dead. Are you happy? I squatted down and held the dagger above her head. Happy? It is good that you're happy. She gently— Pei Zhiyan's body was discovered the next morning, by an auntie pushing a wonton cart out to do business. In less than an hour, the entire capital began to flee the city, with only entry allowed at the city gates. No exit. Duke Yan, with red-rimmed eyes, swore to track down the murderer and dismember them. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince personally traveled back and forth between the Jingzhou Yin's office and the Eastern Palace to inquire about the case of his cousin's murder. All the city's residents were panicked and unsettled. Only a dilapidated small courtyard located southwest of the capital city remained peaceful and serene. This was the home Chenyu found for herself. I looked around. Withered grass, rotten wood, a broken-down house, a discarded couch. It was far worse than the pampered treatment she received in her previous life. She lay on the couch, awkwardly lifting the bedding to place her own clothes underneath as a cushion, only then allowing me to sit. Now that the task she needed to do was complete, I no longer needed to pretend, and simply said, You have eliminated a great threat for me. I can grant you one wish. Her eyes dimmed then brightened, finally only saying, I just want to stay by older sister's side. The same words. Months ago, she spoke with the innocence of a child, but now her brows and eyes were tinged with deep melancholy. I neither agreed nor disagreed. From that day on, I accompanied her daily again, just like when I first brought her into the capital. One evening, I suddenly became curious about how she felt living with beasts in the forest before. She said it was very free. There was no human complexity, no intrigue of the capital. We were all direct in our killings. If we wanted something, we directly kill the other party and take it. What we thought— Her tone shifted. But being a human is very happy, because I can get to know older sister, and I can help older sister. Chenyu's injuries had healed much over these 2 days, and she said she wanted to take me to experience her former life. Sister, try to let go of your restraints. I'll take you to play. What Chenyu called playing was taking me to traverse the mountains and forests like a savage, climbing trees to pick fruits, going down to the river to catch fish. Unacceptable. How can the princess eat such crude things? Hongzhu frowned, pushing away the things Chenyu had brought over, then turned and took out an exquisite lunchbox from the carriage. While Hongzhu went to prepare, Chenyu playfully winked, then tilted her head up and called out. When a massive grey wolf stopped in front of us, she pulled me onto its back with a tug. The wind howled past, and the entire mountain forest echoed with Shenyu's joyful laughter and Hongzhu's exasperated shouts. I was stunned for a moment, while riding on the wolf's back. How long had it been since I felt this uninhibited? It seemed to be since my martial arts were completely abolished, and I resolved to be a proper lady of a noble family. Mother said, since you can no longer practice martial arts, then learn to manage accounts and brew tea properly. Jenna, Mother once hoped you could forge your own path through martial arts, but now that things are set, you must not resent your brother. In the future, your father and I will find you a good marriage, and you will be a qualified mistress of a noble family. As long as your father and I are here, you will remain safe and prosperous throughout your life. But mother, being a noble family's mistress didn't bring me safety or prosperity. It didn't even let me live. The consequence of a day of wild play was that my current body didn't even know how it returned. I only remember someone crying by my ear, someone wiping my face and body for me, she said. On that day of heavy rain, you babbled in your dream, your mouth full of killing intent towards me. I didn't dare ask you why you hated me, and could only ask you full of hope, if you missed me, sister. If I die, could you also? Like when you saw off. A few days flew by, when the manor's servant boy came looking for me. I was holding Chen Yu's hand, teaching her to paint. Commandery princess, there are guests in the manor. The smile on Chen Yu's face froze. I put down the wolf hairbrush in my hand and walked out. Sister, will you still come back? Chen Yu urgently called out to me. I will. I knew what she wanted to hear, and wasn't stingy about telling her. Okay, then I'll wait for you here, sister. I didn't respond anymore, and stepped out. On the way back to the manor, I detoured to the way. When I saw the unremoved white mourning banners still hanging above, I let out a cold laugh and lowered the carriage curtain. Back at the manor, the so-called guests were already waiting in the main hall. Seeing me, they flung their sleeves and put on airs of an elder. Why, Jen, where have all the rules you learned since childhood gone? Your brother has no heir, and this Grand General's manor needs someone to uphold its prestige. I'll make the decision. You will choose a child from the collateral family branch, in our old home, to adopt under your brother's knee, so they can uphold your lineage in the future. This was what Wei Lin had been worried about earlier. My family has no male heirs, so those useless collateral relatives from my hometown, who used to be supported by my father and brother, should now come to the capital to tear flesh from me. Doesn't third uncle grandfather know that His Majesty has already bestowed upon me the title of Commandery Princess, and I hold a rank? If you wish to see me, you must first bow. The old man's cloudy eyes shot out a sharp glint. If not for your father and brother fighting on the battlefield, where would your position as Commandery Princess come from? Are you really going to let them have no descendants to worship them in the future? You unfilial and unbrotherly thing. A woman accused of being unfilial and unbrotherly would, at best, be confined to the ancestral temple for life, and at worst, beaten to death. If I were still the dignified lady I used to be, perhaps I would yield to this coercion. Now I merely gently skimmed off the foam from the teacup with its lid, quietly listening to him speak. As a woman, you are not virtuous and lack morals. Just as Hongju anxiously rushed into the main hall, I fiercely plunged a hairpin into his neck, which was constantly throbbing from agitated speaking. Blood splattered all over me, and Hongju's words caught in her throat. Only after reacting did she say, Commandery Princess. The small courtyard, where Chen Yu lives, is on fire, and 7 wolf corpses are laid out in the courtyard. It is the pack of wolves she brought to Kyoto. She is missing. How many bandit dens were there on third uncle grandfather's journey to the capital? I calmly asked. From Chizhou to Kyoto, one passes through 7 states. Things are turbulent everywhere now, with 3 large bandit dens, and countless small ones. Then deal with all those who came with third uncle permanently. From now on, for anyone from Chizhou who comes knocking, use this method. Kill them until they dare not come again. So-called branch families, so-called relatives sharing the same blood, are nothing but parasites sucking the blood of my grandfather and father. They merely bear the surname Shi, and aren't worthy of my mercy. Yes, what about Chen Yu? Daring to kill the only son of Duke Yan, wasn't her fate sealed from the very beginning? I said with a smile. From the moment Chen Yu voluntarily came to the capital, she embarked on this path to death. I merely provided a little guidance, then blurred the lines of power hierarchy in the human world, and the seriousness of provoking those in power. I am not a protagonist with a cheat skill from a storybook, but merely a woman trapped in the inner quarters, without power or connections, whom my elder brother Pei Zhiyan and his people, could crush with a flick of a finger. I want both revenge and to live safely, so I can only proceed cautiously, not taking a single wrong step. Could Duke Yan not find out who brought Chen Yu to the capital? He could, but unfortunately, though the death of the last male heir of my Xie family left it tottering, it also gave all the illustrious achievements accumulated on every memorial tablet in the Xie family ancestral hall. With my elder brother's death, His Majesty will compensate all of it to me, 'cause I am merely a woman who is not to be feared. This way, it can both demonstrate His Majesty's benevolence and soothe his own conscience. Duke Yan's anger could only fall upon Chen Yu. Since rebirth, no matter how much I tried to suppress it, my hatred for Chen Yu remained so vivid. I hate her, but I'm even more wary of her universally beloved female lead attribute. Therefore, she must die. The rainy season has passed. The blazing sun is like fire. Every day now is good weather. If I hadn't had that dream, in the dream, on her face, there was no longer the bright and enchanting charm she had when she first arrived in the capital. I had seen that man before. He was the emperor's younger brother, the most dissolute old prince in the capital. Chen Yu, this prince has finally gotten you. He sighed as he buried his face in Chen Yu's neck. The next instant, the woman's numb eyes suddenly shot out a sharp glint. Before the old prince could react, his throat had already been bitten through by the woman. She laughed crazily, leaving behind the words, "A man's heart truly is the most disgusting thing in the world." Before slamming her head against the wall, leaving behind a vibrant blood flower, I sat up in bed, gasping rapidly, my heart pounding exceptionally fast. That was Chen Yu from my previous life. I don't know why she met such a fate in her previous life, or where those aristocratic youths who admired and protected her had gone. But when a man loves a woman, if it is tied to interests and power, they will mostly abandon the woman. Chen Yu was the one who was abandoned. Then, after the men achieved success and fame, when they remembered that love they couldn't have, they would search everywhere for their shadows. For example, my brother in the previous life, didn't he also have many women in his courtyard later, who resembled Shen Yu? But Shen Yu was a wolf, solitary and proud. Therefore, suicide by hanging was her fated outcome in her previous life to preserve her dignity. I suddenly felt a pang of sadness. Her fate was ill-fated, orphaned in childhood, struggling to grow up. After she understood human nature, what surrounded her was nothing but false affection and exploitation. Regardless of her previous life or this life, it was always the same. After rebirth, I had always been firm in my goals, and shouldn't have been disturbed by Shen Yu. Yet at this moment, an unspeakable pain surged in my chest. As a fellow woman, I hated her, but seeing her end, I would also feel a sense of shared sorrow, like the fox mourning the death of the rabbit. People often say that men are heaven, and women are earth, using this deep-rooted ideology to imprison women in the inner courtyard. When they studied, we learned needlework. When they practiced martial arts, we learned the 3 obediences and 4 virtues. When they formed factions in the outer residence to fight for their families, we arranged marriages in the inner residence to secure prospects for our families. The so-called advancing hand in hand was nothing more than a family sacrificing a woman to climb laboriously upon her. But why? Hongzhu pushed the door open and came in. "Princess, are you still going to the Siwei today?" In recent times, the Xie family's various properties have slowly gathered, and I have had people build Siwei in various places. The specifications are exactly the same as the one in the capital. Because of this, I now have a very good reputation in the capital. The emperor even personally wrote a plaque for me and sent it to the Mercy Asylum. I snapped back to attention. "Go." As I went out, I said again, "Sanren, go out and look for Chen Yu. Find her and bring her back." Hongzhu, for once, smiled. "Yes, princess." "Princess, My son's score cannot be settled by the life of a mere wolf girl, I chuckled. I look forward to your methods, Lord Duke. The other parties snorted coldly, spurred his horse, and left. That same afternoon, His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince came to. He wandered around the Mercy Asylum, wearing a gentle smile on his face, but with an unshakable sinister ruthlessness deep in his eyes. Miss Xie is kind-hearted, allowing these old and young to have a place to rely on. Truly a model for women. I wish to ask my imperial father for a decree to take Miss Xie as a concubine. I still thought they'd have some other methods to deal with me. It is still a woman's marriage. Now Chen Yu's task of coming to the capital is complete. Next, it is my turn. It was the day Pei Zhiyan came to propose marriage in my previous life. It rained that day, but it soon cleared up after the rain. I took out what Chen Yu had previously brought from the Duke's residence, and given to me from my cosmetic box, the secret Fey item that Duke Yan claimed was lost. This was a map, an iron mine map, clearly showing the location and excavation status of the mine. Illegally opening an iron mine is a crime equivalent to rebellion. This was also the reason Chen Yu had been hunted by Duke Yan. In my previous life, 7 years after I died, someone used this map to have Duke Yan's entire family executed. In this life, he will only meet the same fate. I took the map to the 5th prince's residence. The crown prince is the son of the emperor's most favored consort Pei. The 5th prince is the son of the empress. But Duke Yan's family was growing stronger day by day, and consort Pei and the crown prince's positions were also becoming more secure. However, the empress's maternal family was in decline, and the 5th prince, this legitimate son, couldn't compare to the crown prince, whether in court or in the emperor's heart. This map can be considered my pledge of allegiance. Monsieur? What do you want? The 5th prince, Zhao Changshuan, asked with a light chuckle, his long fingers toying with the map. The position of the 5th prince's official consort. I looked up and smiled at him. Zhao Changshuan's position was awkward. He would likely be the first one eliminated after the crown prince ascended the throne. Therefore, he currently had no official consort, only a few secondary consorts. Since I was going to marry anyway, I preferred an imperial prince's official consort over the crown prince's secondary consort. The 5th prince froze, then said, "All right." A month later, at the emperor's birthday celebration, the map of the iron mine was presented to His Majesty by the Minister of Works in front of all the officials. His Majesty flew into a rage, overturning tables and smashing cups. Consort Pei was slapped publicly while trying to pacify him. The crown prince knelt, terrified, repeatedly shouting that it had nothing to do with him. Duke Yan, with an ashen face, knew he had been abandoned, so he simply confessed to the crime, thus protecting the crown prince. The entire duke's residence was imprisoned. His Majesty ordered the Dali Temple to investigate overnight. The human witnesses who escorted this map and the miners were successively sent into the capital by the 5th prince's people. This case took a full 3 months to be completely closed. During this period, my mother-in-law from my previous life, due to losing her son and having her property confiscated, was ill for a long time and died in prison. By the end of the investigation, the crown prince and consort Pei were still spared, only punished with house arrest. The Duke of Yan's family was exterminated to 3 generations. All males were beheaded, and females were punished by becoming enslaved. On the day the Duke of Yan was executed, I went to see him. When the old Duke saw me, his eyes were bloodshot with hatred. "My son once had a marriage arrangement with you. We never wronged you. Why exactly did you?" "Old Duke, you said that Pei Zhiyan's life couldn't be appeased by a mere wolf girl. Coincidentally, like you, I also feel that one Pei Zhiyan dying is not enough to appease my anger. So I'm sending you down to keep him company, because this matter failed to bring down the crown prince and consort Pei." Zhao Changshuan lost his temper terribly in the study. All the advisors were driven out of the door until I pushed the door open. A pair of hands unexpectedly pulled me in, and hot lips and tongue pressed against mine. I suppressed the impatience between my brows, and let him do as he pleased, until he let go of me and pulled me into his arms. He is so biased. When I was young, I was only schemed against and touched the blank imperial decree on that desk, and he reprimanded me for having a wolf's ambition, unfit to be a son. He cut off my path to success, and to this day, no one dares to marry their daughter to me as my official consort. And him. Although the iron mine was sealed and Duke Yan was executed, the iron previously mined is still unaccounted for. He picked it up high and put it down gently. I hate so much. I hated Jen so much. Zhao Chongshuan's phoenix eyes were bright red, and his handsome face was twisted with resentment. I gently touched his face. It is all right, that batch of iron will send him to hell. The recent affairs of Marquis Yongning's manor have been widely discussed. Does your highness know? Zhao Chongshuan calmed down. The matter of the Marquis's wife beating a concubine to death and being divorced. Why bring that up suddenly? A few days ago, Marquis Yongning submitted a memorial wanting his eldest illegitimate son to inherit the title. The Marquis's wife immediately beat that eldest illegitimate son's birth mother to death on the spot. Along with that illegitimate son, he also had both his legs crippled. This matter caused an uproar in the capital. Some called the Marquis's wife extremely jealous and vicious, saying that who inherits the title should be decided by the Marquis himself. Yet she dared to beat that concubine to death and cripple that illegitimate son. Others said that Marquis Yongning spoiled his concubines and mistreated his wife, which was wrong to begin. I only found it amusing. Marquis Yongning's official career was only so smooth due to his marriage to his wife. Now that he has gained power, he crosses the river and demolishes the bridge. That Marquis's wife is a daughter of the Su clan of Qianling, a general's tiger daughter. How could she easily let him manipulate her? It seems there is no topic for this year's literary gathering yet. How about we make the succession dispute between Marquis Yongning's legitimate second son and eldest illegitimate son the topic? Once a year, the Juxian Tea House in the capital hosts a literary gathering, where literati, renowned Grand Confucian scholars, and students from all walks of life all gather on that day. The students freely discuss poetry and songs, and their views on national affairs. If one could thus catch the eye of a Grand Confucian scholar and be taken as a disciple, their official career would surely be smooth sailing thereafter. Therefore, those scholars highly value this. It is not difficult. Actually, you want to use this to suppress Marquis Yongning and win over the Marquis's wife. Not entirely. I smiled and didn't explain. The Crown Prince lost Duke Yan, and you gained the support of the Qianling Su clan. Are you a bit happier now? He pinched my cheek, and the gloom on his face gradually dissipated. Happy, my little strategist. The Empress requested an imperial decree of marriage from the Emperor. Because my brother had recently passed away, the marriage had to be completed within 6 months. The Imperial Astronomy Bureau calculated an auspicious date, 3 months later. Time was not ample, and as a grand ceremony was unsuitable, preparations began swiftly after the imperial marriage decree. I also went to the literary gathering that day, sitting in the tea house opposite. With me was Marquis Yongning's wife. Oh no, since they had already divorced, I should call her Lady Su. She chuckled coldly as she caressed her teacup. The Su clan doesn't take sides. I smiled as I poured her tea. Not taking sides, just wanting to give Madam an opportunity. As fellow martial families, the Su clan was better off than my Xie clan, having shown weakness to the imperial family over the years. There were at least still male heirs in their household. This Lady Su once disguised herself as a man and went to war. But the family head of that year, her father, had long foreseen the emperor's apprehension. Only among the successful candidates of that year's imperial examination list did he find a husband's family for her that had no power or influence. Now, even the husband's family, that rose to prominence because of her, has backstabbed her, but she could wield a 60 jin heavy long spear. Her original name was Su Juxiao. How could she accept this opportunity? She let out a self-deprecating laugh. A discarded woman, where would she find? Of course there is. Give it a try, Lady Su. Whether you succeed or fail, it won't be more disastrous than it is now. Lady Su gave me a deep look. That afternoon, the struggle between the legitimate and illegitimate sons of the Yongning Marquis estate stirred up countless commotions, not to mention official families, even merchant households. Many ordinary families also have concubines and illegitimate sons. Once this topic was brought up, not only scholars, but even common people joined in. Legitimate and illegitimate children were all fighting for themselves. Wives and concubines were fighting for their own children. The next day, Lady Su brought her child, the legitimate son of the Yong. This son was only 7, and the martial arts he learned from his mother were indeed very formidable. Zhao Chengxuan accepted him, and as I requested, sent him to the Imperial Guard barracks. Lady Su's son had been handed over to him. Thus the Su clan of Chanling was tacitly understood to stand behind Zhao Chengxuan. That afternoon, Madame Xu left the capital. At the city gate, Marquis Yongning pestered her for a long time, finally relenting to request the inheritance of the title for his legitimate son, begging her not to leave. In the past 2 days, his family's affairs had become the talk of the town. Every morning, rotten eggs and withered vegetable leaves could be seen splattered at the entrance of Marquis Yongning's mansion. The emperor fined him half a year's salary on the grounds of improper family conduct, but kept absolutely silent about issuing an imperial decree for his concubine-born son to inherit the title. He panicked. In this capital, bustling with aristocratic families, where you could hit over a dozen marquises with one brick, he, a Marquis Yongning from a humble family, who rose through marriage ties with no foundation, amounted to nothing. Madame Su spat. Who the hell cares? If my father hadn't insisted on choosing you back then, would I, your old lady, have ever taken a liking to you? A useless weakling, who can't carry anything, or lift anything, and you dare to use my reputation to keep women outside. Marquis Yongning stood dumbfounded, watching Madame Su get on her horse, crack her whip, and leave. At the long pavilion outside the city, I waited with wine, and Madame Su dismounted and came over. Hongzhu poured 2 cups of wine, and we drank them down in one gulp. The domestic affairs of a mere Marquis Yongning will pass soon enough. They won't suffer any punishment, she said. This discussion's true intention wasn't about Marquis Yongning, I replied. She paused for a moment, then burst out laughing. You actually played a trick on him. Good. I'll await your news. As she got on her horse, she said, May we succeed. We will. Chen Yu returned the night before my wedding. The general's mansion had red silk banners hung high, and the mansion was brightly lit. When she jumped over from the corner of the wall, she startled a passing maid. Immediately, guards were called, and they started to take action. They only stopped when Hongzhu arrived. When I saw her, it was as if, in a daze, I went back to the way she looked when I first saw her. Her whole body was filthy, with blood scabs and mud grime, squatting in the kitchen, holding a wolf that had long since rotted and was crawling with maggots. Seeing me approach, she slowly raised her head to look at me, her eyes devoid of sorrow or joy. Sister, my wolf mother is dead. I slowly stepped forward and squatted down, ignoring the foul stench of the rotting corpse, and gently brushed aside her hair. Sister, my wolf mother is dead, she said again. At that moment, from her trembling voice, I sensed infinite grief. Seeing her like that, my throat also felt a little dry. After taking a deep breath to suppress my emotions, I said, her emotions were too poor. After I had calmed her down, Hongzhu stepped forward and took the wolf's corpse. I restrained myself from thinking about how she had survived the pursuit of Duke Yang of Yan with the wolf's corpse during this period. After bringing her to the room, I ordered someone to prepare a bath for her, but she was too wary. No one else could get close to her. I had to do it myself. She sat obediently in the bathtub, and I used a cloth to slowly wipe away the bloodstains from her body. Her injuries were more severe than I imagined. Her once snow-white back was crisscrossed with several knife wounds, the longest one stretching from her shoulder to her lower back, with flesh exposed and turned out, and already festering. When I wiped her down, she remained motionless as if feeling no pain, her eyes staring blankly. Outside, facing the fifth prince and his advisors, I could still maintain a calm expression, but at this moment, because of her change, my hands trembled. Perhaps it was because I had seen her at her most joyful and innocent, and her current state was something I had directly brought about. I had someone call for a doctor, and as I watched the doctor approach, her eyes began to redden again, her face fierce, teeth bared. I could only pull her into my arms. "It is all right, don't be afraid. Let her take a look at you." Only then did she utter the second sentence, "Since we reunited." She lay in my arms, her voice choked with a wronged sob, until her cries grew louder, turning into heart-wrenching wails, as if to cry out all the hardships she had recently endured. Her cries continued until her voice grew hoarse, the corners of her mouth stained with blood. Yet she was still searching for an answer. "You brought me out of the deep mountains. Taught me how to be human. Why do you hate me?" My throat felt dry. Why did I hate her? How was I supposed to explain? Besides, by this day, my hatred for her had long faded, the past life like a faded scroll. In this life, I had more important things to do. So I said, "Chenyu, come climb up with me step by step. Climb to a position where no one dares to bully you again." She was probably tired too. After crying she relaxed, and her breathing gradually stabilized. Finally, she murmured, "Sister, don't get married." Chenyu entered the fifth prince's mansion with me, while Hongzhu remained in the general's mansion to manage the Xia family's property. As for the masked maid by my side, the fifth prince just took a deep look, but didn't say anything. The wedding ceremony procedures had been taught by the Mormor beforehand. Everything went smoothly, until the bridal chamber. I was not an innocent young girl. I had already made plans, but when Zhao Chengxuan roughly pressed down, I still hurt so much that my temples became damp. He wanted to exercise his power as a husband and a superior, so his actions were not gentle. I gritted my teeth, stared at the swaying bed curtains from dusk till dawn, before I couldn't bear it any longer, and fainted. After this, Zhao Chengxuan and I shared honor and disgrace, and could no longer be separated. As Madame Xu said, in just 2 months, the dispute between the legitimate and concubine-born heirs of Marquis Yongning was over, and no one mentioned it again. After the Crown Prince's house arrest was lifted, his spirit and vitality had scattered by more than half, and the gentleness, kindness, respect, and frugality he used to feign no longer existed. In his eyes and brows, there was only deep gloom. The emperor no longer treated consort Pei, as before, as if he remembered the goodness of his first wife, and instead, often went to the empress's palace. The father-son relationship between the crown prince and the emperor ultimately developed a rift due to the iron mine incident. At the subsequent few palace banquets, the crown prince openly and secretly created a few minor, insignificant troubles for me, all of which I easily resolved. In mid-October, an accident occurred during the autumn hunt. A brown bear sprang out from the jungle and almost injured the emperor. At that time, the crown prince was standing right beside the emperor, but when the incident happened, he instinctively fled. It was a young man from the Imperial Guard camp who blocked a claw for the emperor, gaining time for the rescue. The emperor was terrified. After recovering his senses, he immediately promoted that young man on the spot to Imperial Guard Right Commander, splitting the 2 guards with Wei Lin's father. The young man was none other than Madame Su's son. Although I was far away at the time, I still saw the dark glint that flashed in the emperor's cloudy eyes when he looked at the crown prince. I turned my head towards Shenyu, who was veiled behind the imperial tent, and nodded slightly. She then left as if she had never been there. From then on, that tiny bit of fatherly affection for the crown prince, which belonged to ordinary fathers and sons, completely vanished from the emperor. For the next half-year, the crown prince frequently made mistakes in state affairs, and was reprimanded, also messing up several tasks in a row. At the same time, the storm of the struggle between legitimate and illegitimate sons, in the capital, rose again. It is just that the main characters this time were no longer the Marquis Yongning's household. It became the Crown Prince and Zhao Chengshuan. What was used for comparison was also the muddled tasks the Crown Prince had handled in the past half-year, and Zhao Chengshuan's recent progress. Again, when you brought up this topic that day, had you already thought of this point? Zhao Chengshuan looked at me with a half-smile. The Crown Prince has been firmly seated in the East Palace for many years. His power in court is beyond what your highness can compare to. A ruler exists for the people's welfare. Water can float a boat, but it can also capsize it. Since that is the case, then let the whole world pay attention to this East Palace contest. Let them choose the monarch they most desire. Zhao Chengshuan smiled, and right in front of his advisors, he pulled me into his arms and kissed me. He pinched my chin, his eyes dark. You truly are an impressive woman. I suppressed the humiliation, the smile on my face becoming even brighter. That night, water was called for 5 times in the room, and I felt as if I had walked through hell. From that day on, Zhao Chengshuan no longer allowed me to listen in when he discussed matters with his advisors. Chen Yu looked at the frightening bruises on my body and cried again. Sister, why does he treat you like this? Shall I kill him? I patted her head. Because when a man perceives you as stronger than him, the only way he can think to suppress you is with these matters in bed. Don't kill him for now, save him for later. After no longer participating in discussions, my life returned to how it was before. Like an ordinary woman, I went outside the city to pray for blessings for my husband, and personally went to the Jisiyuan to busy myself. I knew this was what Zhao Chengshuan wanted me to do, to be a good head wife, virtuous and proper, able to win reputation for him, and not threaten his status. Because of the Xia family's Jisiyuan, charitable institutes in various places, Zhao Chengshuan's popular reputation now has long surpassed that of the Crown Prince. Look, the good deeds a woman does will always be credited to her husband. I smiled as I watched Chen Yu kill the last Eastern Palace shadow guard sent by the Crown Prince, then stepped forward to wipe her face with a handkerchief. Why do you still like to bite necks with your mouth? So dirty. Chen Yu skillfully put on her veil. It is not dirty. I'll go back and wash it thoroughly. On Lantern Festival Day, I was diagnosed as pregnant. Zhao Chengshuan hugged me, spun me around several times, and pecked at my lips. Jen, we have a child. I'm so happy now. I've gained favor with Father Emperor, and from now on, you won't need to worry about court matters anymore. How about you just rest easy and raise our child? I nodded gently. Okay. That the Emperor was also very happy. Even his recently pale and sickly complexion seemed a bit rosier. Yes, the Emperor was ill, and even the imperial physicians couldn't diagnose the illness. 2 months ago, the Eastern Palace took in a Liangdi, a concubine rank that Liangdi's grandfather was imperial physician Xue, who served in the Imperial Academy of Medicine. However, recently Prince Fifth's residence also brought in many new women, all daughters of ministers, who recently pledged allegiance to him. He snorted coldly, his arm around my waist. Back then, they couldn't avoid me fast enough, but now they're rushing to push people into my arms. Yes, indeed, now his momentum is strong. The dethronement of the Crown Prince is only a matter of time. As he spoke, Zhao Chengshuan's hand reached into my skirt. Still, my Jen is the best. standing firmly by my side from the very beginning. My eyes subtly darkened, and I pushed his hand away with a smile. Your Highness, your concubine's pregnancy is not yet stable. He stiffened for a moment, then released me, got up, and left, leaving the freshly delivered pregnancy, stabilizing medicine on the table. Chen Yu came over, effortlessly picked it up, and poured it into the potted plant by the window. She is now calm and reserved. Sister, there is a small amount of safflower in it, Chen Yu said. 2 ladies from the West Wing also got pregnant. A couple of days ago, the manor doctor quietly went and quietly left, without letting out a single whisper. After all, I've made him wary. He is happy on the surface, but in reality, he has already started to act, not wanting me to give birth to the child. I rubbed my throbbing forehead. Have someone hand over the evidence. I've collected of consort Pei harming the emperor to the empress, and while you're at it, send a message to His Highness the Crown Prince. This night is destined not to be peaceful. The empress had been suppressed by consort Pei for too long. After learning the truth, she immediately acted out. When Zhao Chengxuan hastily brought me into the palace, consort Pei's body was still lying on the floor inside the hall. The emperor was spitting up blood in large mouthfuls, but still insisted that the eunuch draft an imperial decree. The crown prince was deposed, and Zhao Chengxuan was made the crown prince. The empress's hands trembled as she held the imperial decree. There was no grief on her face for the dying emperor, only the wild joy of finally getting her way. She had been suppressed by consort Pei for over 20 years. Now, her suffering had finally come to an end. That tiny bit of marital affection from their early days had long been exhausted by years of his favoritism. However, before she could proclaim the decree to the world, chaos had already broken out in the palace. Screams and shouts of surprise drew closer from afar. The crown prince has rebelled. How could he possibly gather his forces so quickly? Zhao Chengxuan was surprised, then suddenly turned his head to look at me. His eyes filled with disbelief. I smiled at him. Your Highness, only if he rebels can you kill him. If he were merely a deposed crown prince, he would only be confined, still enjoying good food and drink, in a different place. But I didn't want that. And I think Zhao Chengxuan didn't want it either. So I was helping him. After the shock, Zhao Chengxuan took a deep breath, grabbed my wrist, and pulled me back towards the inner hall. Protect Her Majesty, the Empress and the Imperial Prince's consort, into the secret passage of the inner hall. The rest of you, hold the main hall to the death. Not a single rebel shall be let in. Zhao Chengxuan's grip on me was extremely strong. I was a bit surprised, and pulling on his sleeve, I said, Your Highness, you should be going out to quell the rebellion right now, not staying here. Shut up. After pushing me into the secret passage, Zhao Chengxuan went out with his sword, watching his retreating figure as he led his men to guard the palace entrance. I pursed my lips. My heart felt a bit complicated for a moment. The crown prince came very quickly, and along with him came Wei Qian's father. The imperial guards of the capital totaled 50,000 men, and he brought more than half of them. Zhao Chengxuan, you still lost. Ha 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 ha. So what if you're the legitimate son of the empress? You've been trampled underfoot by me since childhood, and this will never change in this lifetime. Do those lowly commoners have the right to discuss legitimacy? He pointed his sword at Zhao Chengxuan, but in the next instant, he suddenly screamed, because Zhao Chengxuan dragged out consort Pei's corpse. Trash. He fiercely picked up the corpse, threw it, smashing it onto the crown prince's body, then raised his sword and charged forward. Inside the palace, it was brightly lit all night long, with the sounds of fighting shaking the heavens. Although Madame Su's son was the right guard of the imperial army, after all, his foundation was unstable, and he didn't have many people. When dawn broke, the palace ground was already caked with a thick layer of dried blood. Zhao Chengxuan had also become a bloodied mess, miserably leaning against the palace entrance, having run out of strength. Seeing Wei Lin's father, with a ferocious expression, raise his long spear to stab through Zhao Chengshuan's body, the empress let out a piercing scream. I also clutched my sleeve. Fortunately, the next instant, a long spear flew from behind, splitting open Wei Lin's father's chest. A familiar voice also followed, ringing out, "The Su clan of Qianling has entered the palace to quell the rebellion. Those who surrender will not be killed. If you remain stubborn and unrepentant, you will be executed." Su Jushao, clad in armor, had a booming voice. Not far away, fighting the rebel army, was Wei Lin in silver armor, and behind her were the mountain bandits she had taken away and disappeared with during her bandit suppression. These mountain bandits were originally retired veterans of battle, who had turned to banditry because they were not properly resettled. In her previous life, Wei Lin had recruited them, placing them under her elder brother's command. In this life, this force belonged to Wei Lin. I walked out from the secret passage, and from a "Is this also something you calculated? When was it?" "When you reported to the Crown Prince, or even earlier." The sun rose, the rebel army retreated steadily, and Zhao Chengshuan threw his sword and sat down without any regard for his image. His tone was mocking when he spoke. "Prince Consort, you truly make me look at you in a new light. But what exactly do you want?" I didn't answer him, only squatted down and gently wiped away the bloodstains from his face, revealing that superior-looking yet sorrowful face. The deposed crown prince was run through the chest with a sword on the night of the palace coup. On the third day after the palace coup, the emperor passed away. He was the only emperor of this dynasty to suffer a palace coup by his own son. Future history books would certainly not paint a pretty picture. It was also the punishment for him doting on concubines, neglecting his wife, and harshly treating his legitimate son. 2 months later, Zhao Chengshuan ascended the throne, and I was made empress. The former concubines from the fifth prince's mansion were also welcomed into the palace and granted ranks. Zhao Chengshuan bestowed rewards one by one upon those who had entered the palace to protect the emperor that day. Only Su Jushao and Wei Lin were ordered to be sent back to their ancestral homes. But since Wei Lin's father was involved in the rebellion, the left guard manor had been ransacked, so she could only buy a courtyard outside and move her mother's ancestral tablet there. Zhao Chengshuan wanted control over the group of pacified bandits, but they had already been incorporated into the Su clan army. Even knowing they still obeyed Wei Lin's orders, he was temporarily at a loss. Before returning home, Wei Lin came to see me once. After staying at the border for over a year, her skin got darker and was no longer as delicate as before, but her eyes became even brighter and more resolute. That was how I once wished I could be. I felt a bit envious. She touched my belly. "Jen, don't, whatever you want to do, we'll have your back." I gently hugged her. "Okay." Wei Lin chuckled and teased. "How come after not seeing you for so long? You're still acting cute." Before she could finish, I was pulled back by Chen Yu. With a cold face, she separated Wei Lin and me. "The palace gates are about to be locked. You should leave." "Hey, I'm telling you, you wolf." Wei Lin stopped without finishing her sentence. Before leaving, she pointed at Chen Yu and said to me, "Jen, watch out. If she is still following you now, she must have an ulterior motive." A flying dagger chased Wei Lin out of Fengyi Palace. Chen Yu turned around and looked at me with some grievance. "Sister, I didn't do anything. Why did she say that about me?" I sighed. "I know, it is okay. 7 months into my pregnancy, Zhao Chengshuan never once stepped into my palace gate." The former husband and wife had completely fallen out. Unexpected incidents around me were endless, and the same was true for those surrounding Zhao Chengshuan. It wasn't until I was about to give birth that I reluctantly unveiled Chen Yu's face, allowing her to enter Zhao Chengshuan's world. After a half night of labor, I gave birth to a prince, then put on a hood, and went to Chengqian Palace. Zhao Chengshuan had a knife plunged into his chest and had fainted from excessive blood loss. Chen Yu still handles things so simply and crudely. It makes me, who has to clean up the mess, rub my forehead in exasperation. When I sat before the couch, he woke up. His lips moved slightly. Why did you insist on giving birth to this child? Then why did your majesty insist on killing him? I asked back. He gave a self-mocking laugh. If I didn't kill him, would you let me live? The answer was self-evident. When I got up to leave, he grabbed my sleeve. When you chose me back then, was there even a trace of liking? I shook my head. Then what about your majesty? He looked at me and didn't answer. Perhaps there was some when we first got married, but later, too much came between us, and under the corrosion of power, no matter how much affection there was, it was gone. As I stepped out of the palace door, suddenly, a weak yet firm yes came from behind me. I suddenly remembered he once asked me what I ultimately wanted since rebirth. What I've wanted is no longer to be the fish on the chopping block. It is too difficult for a woman to survive, I said. I am not the refreshing female lead in a storybook. Only by step-by-step deduction in my mind could I reach this point. After Zhao Chengxuan's death, the little prince in my arms ascended the throne as emperor, changing the dynastic title to Tianhua. I governed the court. In the 7th year of Tianhua, I opened the imperial examination for women, and welcomed Xu Juxiao and Wei Lin back to court. In the 10th year of Tianhua, the young emperor, following the advice of several old officials, began to seize power from me. In the 14th year of Tianhua, the young emperor died, and I ascended the throne as emperor. A few old officials argued incessantly, scolding me for a hen crowing at dawn, attempting to unite the officials to boycott court. I smiled, and remained silent, until they didn't hear any movement, and turned to look. Only then, discovering that the court officials had already knelt down all over the floor. I spent 14 years stealthily infiltrating more than half of the imperial court. If they were to visit my Xia family's charity institutions in various places, they would discover there is a lot more to the inner courts of these institutions. The children practiced martial arts and studied literature. I hired the best Grand Confucian scholars and martial arts masters for 14 years, with a martial exam every year and a special imperial exam every 3 years. Under my patronage, many of them passed the exams, and many went to the borders for training. I prepared new identities for them to move between the imperial court and the battlefield. No one knew they were once abandoned children or beggars. There were even countless others who intermarried with aristocratic families. None among them had other intentions. But so what? There always needs to be a balance between the old officials and the new. After the silence, came the officials' thunderous shouts of "Long live the emperor." Now who can say my Xia family has fallen? Nowadays, female officials in court are still very few. Almost all of them came from the charity institutions. But I'm not in a hurry. I cannot demand that all women in the world be like me. All I can do is stand in a high position myself, pave the way for them, and tell them there is another way for women to live in this world. As for whether they choose to step out of the back courtyard, that is entirely up to them. My gaze swept past Wei Lin and Xu Juxiao, finally landing on Shen Yu in the corner, who was wearing a veil and always smiling as she looked at me. Fortunately, in this life, all of our fates have changed. Later, I abdicated and chose a child from the imperial clan to succeed me. I took Shen Yu and Wei Lin down to Jiangnan. While boating on the lake, from afar, a rough and angry male voice rang out. "I'm your damn big brother. I'm your heaven today. You're getting married whether you like it or not." Immediately followed by the sound of someone falling into the water, the man thrashed and cursed in the water, while the girl on the bank clapped her hands and rolled her eyes. "Your damn heaven. You want to break the law." The emperor herself said women have freedom to marry. No one is allowed to force or interfere. I think you want to go to the yamen and get flogged. With that, the girl walked away with a swing.